it is a big question to answer. In terms of like this stuff, the online portal, the geopolitical game, the best thing is to click records because that's where you can find stuff like guilds, regions, specific people. So, for example, if you wanted to, like, I don't know, look me up, you could. There I am. Hooray. Um, that way, if you're like, I'm talking to this person and I don't like remember what guild they're from or whatever, you can look them up and see that for future reference. That's probably the best thing that like I use the online portal for in terms of Biko as a whole. Um, stuff like sunscreen, stuff like knowing what you need to camp, and anyone who's a speaker, if you want to chime in with this, feel free. I do have a list linked in the FAQ doc that goes more into like what is good stuff to have to bring. Of course, it's not a all-encompassing list. It is just a generic packing list of like here's stuff that you might want to consider bringing. Yeah, another thing is if you're that Runa pointed out is if you're here like you're in your personal dashboard, if you go up to documents, you can see all the official documents. Um, a lot of them will be in French, but there's also a lot of people who have either translated it in the past or be willing to translate it. Are there any questions we can answer right now about this, like the online part of Vigo first?
Then the actions will be done after an event in order to affect the online game. I don't know if that answers the question, but it's usually made by the guild leaders or region leaders, if I can explain, if I can say like that.
That's well said, and Draven, if ever you need a in-depth explanation, I can definitely direct you to someone who would have pertinent information to your
I would say for new players, the easiest way to get an active in political things or things that will influence the online portion of the game is to go find your region leaders. If you're in Arendelle, that will be the people leading Arendelle. If you're in Akes, that will be the people leading Akes. If you're in any other territory that your guild is related to, then that will be through them, and they will be able to direct you to what needs to be done, what are the things that you could help with, and things like that.
If you are newer, like you've never been, find a group of people that you would like to play with, whether it's here or in another server, or once you get to the grounds and you find your people. And my biggest piece of advice is the first year, start with exploring the world on your first couple days and then jump into more. Literally just so you don't get lost on the grounds because the grounds are big. But then the chances are good that if the people that you are with have been going for any amount of time, they'll know people who will know people who know people who know how to do the thing you're looking to do. Biko can kind of turn into like a game of telephone where it's this I heard this from this person who heard it from this person who heard it from this person who heard it like 3 months ago online. Or hey, I'm looking for this person. Oh, I saw them 10 minutes ago. They went that way. Great. I don't know where they are now. Um, but finding a group of people who are who have the same goals as you can also be really helpful because they will know sort of the direction for where you are looking to go.
I believe to answer the question, what is a Fae, that Godmother Runa would probably be the best to give you the most detailed answer if she would be comfortable answering that question.
Um, I mean, at this point in time, like, it's again a Biko is a wibbly wobbly thing. Everybody keep in mind that like there's the socio-political capital G game, and then there's the festival, and those two things are entities that Venn diagram. So like just because something is recognized as canon does not mean that like you don't have ways to be able to play with the game outside of that canon if the canon really doesn't speak. Um, but I can say that like what is a Fae at Biko right now? There are two like big recognized like breeds, so to speak, of Fae, which are the old Fae and the new Fae. The old Fae are Fae that have always existed in Mundus and stayed in Mundus when there were Fae that fled to go and build the Feywilds. So that's the big distinction. And the other thing that we were told by the GMs back in 2022 and 23 when we were like finalizing Faelore was that anybody who's transformed at the heritage ceremony is a new Fae as opposed to an old Fae. Um, New Fae have some fun little like specifics to them called tissages that have to do with like the lore of how the Feywilds were built. And the quick crash course on that is that in order to build a world, the Fae had to use magic to take the building blocks of a world with them to a new space to build. So they magically tied thread tissage, tied themselves to certain elements in order to be able to build the wilds when they got to their new realm. So that's why you have people who are woven of water, woven of earth, woven of light, woven of air. And that's the origin of the tissage concept. The idea is that a lot of different elements will mix to create new things in the world. So a lot of people can be made of two tissage. When we were coming up with the concept, Nick said that he thought that it would be a good idea for us to put a limit on two, and that if you do three, then it makes you go bonkers. If you want to role play with being bonkers, that's cool. But having three is just too many magics crammed into one being, and you quit being able to like be conscious and think, and you start becoming just like a force of nature. Um, and again, just a teensy bit of little more context on why all this got nailed down. Um, the short version is a lot of us, when we came to Biko and started playing outside of the socio-political game because there was no way for us to plug in, we used Changeling the Lost as inspiration for a lot of what we did. And it got popular enough, especially after some YouTubers recorded the heritage ceremony and posted them, that White Wolf actually sent a cease and desist letter to Biko saying, quit using RIP, you're not allowed. So the GM and the board of Biko got a hold of Nick, who knew us, and said, fix it. And that's what precipitated us starting to like finalize Phalor at Biko. Um, So the biggest reason that they came to us was because we were playing a really large group at the time, and they hoped that we would be able to trickle down the changes that Biko was being forced to make effectively because of a legal. So like that's why everything got locked down. That's why it went from wibbly wobbly to now like even we don't know a lot of the stuff that we role played back before the pandemic. We don't know how much of it is like real and not real because a lot of stuff got retconned. So even we are still learning things through role playing the game. So all of that to say, if you want to stick to the canon, Fae is new Fae and old Fae. Old Fae means like you don't really like court stuff and you've been in Mundus this whole time. New Fae means you're made of a couple of different pieces of magic and you work a lot with glamour, which means changing your appearance. And you have all of that backstory lore to play with. That there's this realm and people fled and now they're coming back and the Feywilds are disintegrating and all that kind of fun backstory, which also intermingles into the political story that is the gigantic world of Mundus.
Yeah, I think that segues pretty well into the next question that was asked on that list, which is what does being Fae entail?
A lot of that is for you to fill out yourself, to be very honest, in what it means to you as well. Also building upon the lore out there, right? So you have the documents, but it's not like anyone's going to force you down a certain path. You can really decide what being Fae to you is. I think the best way to compare it to at Biko is it. I mean, Biko doesn't do a lot around races, right? But it is another race to some extent. And that's really where it stops right now. We're still learning. We're still figuring out where it goes from here.
I think something else that could also be added is the fact that whilst it is a different race, it is also exactly what you made of it. This is a co-construction. This is a co-constructed concept that has been developed throughout the years, but is also still developing. So what you make of it will influence how other perceives you and how you interact with people, and you can make it as magical or as simple as you wish. It doesn't have to be big makeup and big costumes every day. It can be as simple as you do a little something different or you wear a little something different. And that is how you show your magic or your glamour, or depending on the type of fae that you are, your tissage or your belonging to certain court or being courtless, or just as much as you would be showing which guild or region you're taking a part of. Some people with some specific region might have a different style or different colors or things like that, or certain ways of speaking and things like that. being Fae is pretty much just like that. It's a constructed concept, and you make what you want of it.
Yeah. Someone also asked what Fey Touched is, and Fey Touched is similar. It's someone who's been exposed to enough Fey magic that it's starting the process of making changes. So this is like you're just around the Fey a lot, so maybe your ears are a little pointier, or you're a little bit more glittery. Again, that's one of those things you can sort of play with and find what feels best for you. But generally, it is someone who has been around the Fae enough that the magic is starting to change them.
Yeah, and like Bruno said, it's reversible. Like that's the stage where you are able to come back from it. Like if that's your choice, you're like, oh, I've spent all this time around the Fae, but I don't want to be Fae. I want to go back to who I was before. That's your choice. The way that Vika works, especially, obviously, everything is your choice. But I refer to becoming Fey touched and kind of like the way that Fey magic works as kind of like radiation, where it is ambient, so it's just all around when you are hanging out with the Fae. So a little bit of that like gets leached into you as you hang out and interact with yeah, like rads like interact with the Fae and Fae magic and things like that.
Sweet. All right, before we go too deep into the Fae, I just want to show people who haven't seen this yet this. It is an online, we found out it doesn't work on mobile. I don't know why. It's also not the most up to date, but you can sort of see the general layout of like, here's Newtown, here's Old Town, here, like it shows all of the different, this one, neighborhoods. So when you hear someone talk about like the North Coast, they're talking about right here. If you are someone who's like, I need to go see the map before I get there, or I'm gonna lose my mind, this is probably one of the better ways to see it. It's not 100% up to date. Like there's buildings over here now that aren't on there. But it is a good place to see it. Yeah, or like the Biko walking videos, like General Talion and March Wardens has so many walking videos that can help you orient yourself if you are somewhat, because before I went, I was really anxious I was going to get lost and not know where I was. So I like binge watched those to sort of get a feel. But this is a good resource. It is linked in the FAQ doc. And I can post this link somewhere else, like in the chat for right now if we need it. We'll do that right now before I forget.
Is it worth maybe also showing where the different courts usually are, just for the sake of anyone who's interested in speaking to courts individually, while we've got the map up and we've got people here?
Yeah, we can. I just closed the tab, so give me a second. Okay. Is there any court that would like to go first? On sort of generally where they are?
Sure. Um, so the Court of Time is heavily associated and allied with Nephilim, which are located in the North Coast. That big, that big building right there is our longhouse and our guild hall. And that's about where I'll be camping and where Calliope will be camping, who is also a keeper in the Court of Time. And it's a fairly open space. Like obviously, be like, hey, we're looking for Port of Time information. The guild is also very excited to be working with us, so they will be excited to talk to you about it. But that's where we're centered. But a few of our other keepers are kind of scattered around the map in terms of camping.
For Tide of Seasons, we're like I said, this map not the most up to date. Avant Post is over here off the battlefield. They cleared a lot of this, and there's a building now. We are right about here-ish is where our camp is in all these trees. That's where I am. That's where Leica will be. Um, that's where one of our chalice holders is. Our other archfey will probably be in like I want to say either non-decorum. They're going independent, so it's really wherever they get placed. For our court, but generally right here. It's a bit of a hike, but that's where we are.
Nisha, can you show where Lesite is? Oh, sorry, Elinus.
Yeah. I was going to say there is a question in chat about being put in Lesty with other Fae. That is just a general neighborhood, and it is actually where the other two courts are located.
Yeah, so right here, Leica and I camp with Scions of Leviathan. If you look for teal, that's where we are. La Cité is over here.
Yeah. Mirage, if you want to say where you are. As I can just say where we both are.
I mean, the hard part in our case is we're kind of, so if you see the giant red circle that is the city, like we're in the empty spot to the left of the circle that's like on the outside. That's all Mirage Court, and it's just because there's friggin' 60. So
yeah. And then we are, Shikari are just down the road. Essentially the road that if you follow and you kind of go left at that fork, that's exactly where we are. Your mouse is right on top of us.
Right here?
Well, I think we're slightly past it. That might be the orc camp there, and then we're next to it.
Area.
We're in that area.
But yeah, it is.
Yeah, we were a little bit farther down the road, but yes, we are close to Mirage.
Yeah, it is spread out. But there's like kind of 2 courts on the new townish side and kind of 2 on the old townish side. Because this is the bulk of Old Town right here. Is this black shape right here?
Quick note about Safari. If you are looking for us, we can be hard to find. Our campus is smaller.
As you can
look for the fire pit.
tower, you're usually
There's
able to orient yourself
orc
as well.
encampment there, and he has his fire pit. We're next to him. There's probably a terrace.
Or there's also just the big road that leads down to the river that you can use as a sort of a touchstone, I guess.
Yeah, this road right here runs behind all of La Cité and eventually ends up in Non-Decorum in the battlefield. If you get lost, you can end up battlefield. And that's a pretty good landmark because it's huge.
I do want to mention that Non-Decorum is being moved this year and it's going to be placed behind La Cité and not going to be where it used to be.
Yeah.
Because it has to be bigger this year. So where the Quartier Nomade used to be, that I believe will also be moved.
Yeah,
because
like I said, this map is old.
behind La Cité is going to become Non-Decorum, I believe.
Yeah, I also thought that was 2027, but
I believe
could
that
be
it
wrong.
is this year, but I'm not sure.
Another feature that this map has, just for future reference, it has nothing to do with the courts. This is more a safety at Bico thing. It will show where bathrooms and water stations are. Please make sure you're drinking water. The construction question reminded me of that because they're building new water up on the battlefield. Um, Eventually, one day, we've been told. But make sure you're drinking water. This main road right here has water along it pretty much the whole way. But it is good to. It is easy to forget to hydrate at Bico because there's so much going on that sort of falls to the wayside. Are
Yeah,
there
I
any
will say
other?
I think the water point by the field is also planned for 2027.
Yeah, it's supposed to go like here-ish, but it won't happen until
Yeah.
2027. They're also building like a shower block somewhere over here, and there's a bridge. There's a lot of construction, but it's not. None of it is supposed to be done until like 2027, 2028. Are there any other questions about the map before we get into the more Fey stuff and courts? Sweet. I'm gonna pull this up because this answers a lot of those like court specific questions. Um, so sort of like what makes all of the courts different? What events do I join? How does one join a court? This answers a lot of it. So I don't know which court would like to start introducing their court. Um, yeah, Eden, you're first.
Hey, what the
Hey, I didn't volunteer you. You got voluntold in the chat.
heck?
You are also the last one to do the homework, so.
Oh. Well, okay. Let me pull it up on my own because it's a little small on that screen. Okay. So, all right. So the Court of Time. Let's do the first question. Who are we? Uh, and our vibe, our personality, our origin story. We were formed in response to the decline of the Feywilds and all of the Fey who came back over or who somehow ended up back in Mundus. Like Eden personally ended up in Mundus because she took a nap and then her garden was gone and she was transported to Mundus by no will of her own. Uh, it's with all of these new Fae returning to Mundus, the cycle of time for us Fae kind of restarted. Like, we are not immortal beings. We might have been back in the Feywilds, but we are not immortal beings on Mundus. So the time that now that time is affecting us, we wanted to kind of understand how that might work for us, how like death of old age might work for us, and how we can deal with that and bring connection to each other and the other mortals of Mundus. We can bring us all together. We are fairly like our origin story is a little sad and like in response to this dark and gloomy kind of event, but we are very optimistic and fairly chill. Oh yes, every different font. um, we're very optimistic and fairly peppy. We like to be more involved with our events are more community building um, and fun uh, rather than being like we have to understand how death is going to affect us. That is every day. That will be our mission forever. That's one of our missions, but it's not our only piece. So Are we taking turns going through the questions, or are we just
Yeah, I figured it'd be easier to go to take turns for each question so we
Yeah.
can sort of compare. All right, I don't know who wants to go next. Eden got thrown under the bus. All right, I guess it's our turn. We've been voluntold. So Tide of Seasons is a combination of the the court formerly known as the Court of Sacred Waters and the court formerly known as the Court of Seasons. It is a combination of the two. Our origin story is that there is a primordial named Thalassa that revealed she was inspired by the Fae and Mundus and revealed our sacred chalices with power, and then she bequeathed them. And with that, they also were tied into the cycle of the seasons because Thalassa is big on change and moving and motion. So she was inspired also by the change of seasons. So we are a very, I feel like saying a fluid court is a bit on the nose, but we are very comfortable and familiar with change. And we, yes, liquid court. So we focus on not only how water drives the seasons, but how the seasons drive changes within water because it is within all of us, it's around us. So that is sort of our goal is to focus on how we change and to not just change randomly and in a chaotic way, but focusing on like the cycles that are present in all of us. All right, Shikari and Mirage, is you gonna rock paper scissors?
I can step outside and take Shikari. We're on who we are, right?
Yes.
It shouldn't be too long. I just want to remind all of you that Nestra is currently at work, so they are stepping out, but might also have a little bit of internet problems. That is a thing that might happen. So if you would not mind just giving them a little bit of time, that is completely normal. Okay, I think we'll
Yeah.
have to. Yeah, you good?
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
I will take over
Thank you.
instead. This was written by Nestrea, so it is much more in their voice than mine. But in terms of what the Shikari are, there's no, I think, universal definition. We are a court of chaos. We are a court of shadows. We are a court that has been in Mundus and has much stronger ties to Mundus than many other Fae. I think in terms of whether that represents everything that our court is, it doesn't come close. I also think that to give an exact answer as to what our court is somewhat antithetical to what our court is. but I would say we are mostly not so much now, but we are at our origin at least very tied to Mundus and thus very tied to Old Fae. We do have New Fae as well, so we aren't an exclusively Old Fae court. We are probably the closest, if you were to speak in terms of Seelie or Unseelie, we are probably the most Unseelie court, although those aren't really terms used at Biko. I've also heard the word edgy thrown around to describe us, which I may or may not agree with. Yeah, exactly. In terms of using it for comparison, if you think of Fae in terms of Seelie and Unseelie, we are the most Unseelie court. That doesn't necessarily mean that we are, evil per se, or even particularly antagonistic. I think it's more a matter of just having different perspectives. There's no universal rule as to what to expect or not expect from a member of the Court of Shikari, because we are also very big on individual freedom.
Sweet. And then our last court is the Court of Mirages.
Okay. Well, I mean, we're kind of basic, to be honest, because we were the first like large Fey court at Biko. And honestly, the biggest reason that we ended up forming a court was because operating it as the courtless was something that Biko as a whole was kind of struggling with. And there were so many courtless doing so many different things, it made it difficult to distinct our particular little group from everybody else who was doing courtless things. So we finally said, we're doing it, we'll commit, let's make a Fey court. At the time, Fey culture was new and growing rapidly. So our goal ended up being to basically like help bring the Fey culture that we'd been playing with kind of extra Biko, if that makes sense, kind of like extracurricular, into Mundus's story. The same way that Nick and the other GMs in the team were trying to bring those two things together. So in that way, the goal of the Court of Mirages is to bring Fey magic back to the world of Mundus and help discover the missing history that exists between Old Fey and New Fey. How the Fey Wilds were founded, how we can reintegrate into the world of Mundus without causing problematic damage or change to that realm, etc., etc. So that's kind of like our whole like goal is just to reconnect Mundus and the Fae on a very basic level. Like make it so that the average person, when you're walking down a walkway, sees a Fae, recognizes them as a Fae, and like knows kind of what to expect from an interaction should they choose. Very basic, very simple. We also are kind of what you could refer to, and some of our people would hate me for saying this, but it's true, kind of what you could refer to as more of a like a Disney style kind of Fae. We definitely have tricksters, etc., among us, but our guilds ended up settled in Irandil, which is a very like they don't do dark magic, they don't do necromancy, they don't do anything that could be against the cycle or could be evil or could be bad or could be we did no none of that, no, nuh-uh, not allowed. Can't even think about it. No. So like we don't while we do have people who have like what some people could call more dark aesthetics, they're still leaning into the idea of at an L. They still are leaning into the idea that things like death are a natural part of the cycle. Skulls are not a scary, awful thing. Everybody has one. Um, but yeah, I think that's basically us in a nutshell.
Sweet. The next question is, where are people most likely to find the leaders of the court? I think we kind of went over that when we were going over the map. Um, so we'll just move on to, is your court open to new members or actively recruiting? And we'll stick with this order. So Eden.
Yes, thank you, Elith. I really appreciate you putting me up for this. I really, um, yes, the Court of Time is open and welcoming for new members. Our initiation process is fairly simple, and it is very open, and we're not super complicated yet. I don't think we're big enough to be too complicated. That might change in the future if things like need to be more settled. But for now we are fully open.
And then Tide of Seasons, we're also open. We are the newest court, so we have the least members so far. So we are currently accepting any and all who want to join.
For Shikari, whilst recruitment is technically open, we are not actively seeking new members. So you have to go through an interview process in order to join the Shikari court. It is not you show up and you get part of it immediately. There are a specific process that you have to go through, but we are recruiting specific people if the vibe fits.
For the Court of Mirages, the answer to that is a teensy bit complicated. The short version is the court is accepting new members. Our guilds are not, because we're all full up on space, et cetera, et cetera. So we have like levels of being able to join and do things. So if what you end up doing is coming and meeting us and vibing with us, and you want to join the court, there are certainly ways to do that, even though we don't really have space to take on any more tents or any more people for the guilds.
Sweet. And then I know this got touched on a little bit, but is your court tied to a specific guild? Is membership for that guild required to be part of the court? Is court membership required to be part of that guild? Eden.
Okay. Nephilim as a guild is not actively recruiting, but they are like open to new members. They're very excited to play with the Fae. But Nephilim is basically they're kind of like our sponsor. We went looking as a court for because we wanted to play in the geopolitical game. We went looking for guilds and nations that were willing and could support us. Through resources and things like that. So we went a lot of places, talked to a lot of friends all over, but we ended up settling with Nephilim. They were very excited to play with the Fae. They're mostly French speakers, so they were very excited to kind of meet more people. Membership with Nephilim is not required to be a member of the guild. Court, sorry. And we accept members from all guilds and all nations. Yeah, and one more thing. If, in terms of resources, we, as a court, handle our own resources. Nephilim sometimes will pay for something and then we just pay them back with whatever resources that we're able to. But it is a very much like shared but separate situation, and we don't demand any resources from our members either.
For Tides of Season, we aren't tied to a guild in any way, so guild membership isn't necessary. historically, Court of Seasons was tied to Ordo Cervi, but a lot of their old leadership is not coming back because the Voyage North is not coming back. They are focusing on Heinefall, so I don't know if there are plans for a Seasons Court at Heinefall, but we aren't tied to a guild, also because we're very new, so that's not really what we're focused on. So Leica and myself are in Scions of Leviathan, but that just means that we might wear more teal than the average Biko player might.
For Court of Shikari, whilst we are tied to a guild, you do not have to be part of said guild in order to be part of the court. We have members that are part of other courts, members that are part of other guilds. Ideally, we try to be within AKES, but I believe it is possible to also be part of other nations, as I was an example in the past being part of the Empire whilst being from the Court of Shikari. So you are able to be both guild and court, or you can just be court, and that is okay.
And then, like, I kind of answered this a teensy bit earlier, but yeah, we have levels. We're tied to what are actually 3 guilds because we just have gotten really big and wanted to be able to diversify to do more in the game. Pardon. Uh, but if you want to join the court, just because we don't have space in the guilds doesn't mean that you can't join the court. We have other members of Irondell. There's actually somebody who's in our court who's in another spiral and not for spiral or our guilds right now. So it's if you want to join, you can. You just might not necessarily be involved in the socio-political goings on that the court is also involved in, and that's really the only thing that's on the gate, other side of that gate for first spiral or being in the guilds.
Sweet. So what sort of players best fit in your guild? Things like what sort of roleplay experience, what sort of temperament, language. Eden? Gonna keep throwing you under the
Yeah.
bus.
Yeah, no, it's fine. We are open to. Oh, thank you, Kyo. I really. The court time is open to all sorts of players, but we are specifically looking for people who are interested in building a like a game for the community rather than rather than kind of pushing their own story forward. There's definitely room for that with us, but in terms of what we want to build, it's more of a it's more of a community built game and group activities and group progress. There can always be like group effort to help someone further their game, but very much more group and community based rather than furthering someone's personal Bico journey. We accept both Francophone and Anglophone. Many of our Nephilim friends are bilingual or Francophone, but unfortunately, all of our keepers are Anglophone. I speak a little bit of French, but not enough to call myself bilingual. I wouldn't say I'm bilingual. In terms of tissage, uh, we are open to every tissage, so we don't really look for any specific tissage to represent us. Time affects everybody, and the water, the earth, the sky,
Sweet. For Court of Seasons, we are more like Runa was saying, it's Bico Extra, where we are more focused on that RP. We have a lot of great people in our court who want to do a lot of like they want to plan a ceremony or they want to plan like an event. So we have a lot of focus on that. This is probably one of the bigger misconceptions. You do not have to be in any way a water fae to join our court. Just because we focus on the cycles of water doesn't mean that it's like you have to be water tissage at all. You could be any tissage, and that is totally fine.
I assume that that's my cue to take over. I just want to make sure I wasn't cutting anyone off. As far as the Court of Shikari, obviously, like I said, we are much more unseelie, a little bit more dark and edgy. So obviously, if you're not comfortable with everything that goes on, particularly with Okes and our traditions, practices, things of this nature, you may not be a great fit. Generally speaking, the reason why we conduct the interview process is kind of to determine also who's going to be a good kind of social fit with the existing members of the court. Obviously, it's not if you don't fit, go away, we hate you forever, but it's, are you someone who we can kind of just hang out with socially, or are you someone who really fits with the core values? So that's kind of what we're sussing out. In terms of language, most of the core of the court is fully bilingual. We have a few people who are still learning French, but generally speaking, especially because Okes is primarily francophone, it's very helpful to at least understand a good bit of French and be able to at least stumble through a conversation.
I'm going to answer the players suited for Mirage Court bit first, and then I'll answer the question that Father of the North just put in the chat, and also open up space for other leaders to do the same. But for our group, as mentioned earlier, we're in Irandil, so it's not that you have to be super like into nature or the forest or anything like that, but you can't, excuse me, you can't do well in our group if what you're interested in is doing any necromancy, working with any undead, doing any dark magic, that kind of thing. It's just strictly forbidden in Irandel, and they do these like really intense like inquiries during court meetings, and it's stressful, and I don't like them, so we don't do that. But otherwise, like we have Quebecois players at this point that have been going to the game for a long time. We also have brand new, American players who can't speak a lick of French. So, like, anywhere you are on the language spectrum, you can fit in with us if you vibe with us well. It's really a matter of the kinds of things you want to do at Bico, because there are groups at Bico that are far more military focused than our group is. We have some people who are really dedicated fighters and really enjoy being on the battlefield. But if what you want is a group of like 30, 40 people who all are hitting the battlefield several times during the week, our group might not necessarily, there's different vibes for different groups. And I think as long as you can fit in well with what we're doing in particular, then you'll fit in well in the court. As for the question about Tessage tying you to any kind of an animal or anything like that, specifically the idea is that the Tessage actually ties you to something that's more elemental. Like one of the Tessage de Vie, is woven of life. And that, basically what you do is you kind of take the idea of these different threads as building blocks for what your Fae is supposed to be. For example, Runa, the character that I play, her original inspiration was a Huldra. So I went with light and life because they love to party and they're also nature Fae. So light and life, the way that that affects my costuming, because that was a big thing that we talked about when we were developing the tissages with the GM, Nick, was that your tissages kind of inform a little bit about your tell or ways that you might put your outfit together, ways that you might role play and connect with Mundus and other players. So, like myself, I always include some amount of glow in the dark to every single outfit I wear, because that to me is a good representation of being woven of both light and life, having some amount of bioluminescence on my character at all times. Because the idea is with access to glamour magic, you can change how you look at any given moment for the most part. We kind of always role played out the idea that it takes like some meditation and focus, which is just like the role play cover for you've got to go be alone in your tent to change your makeup and your ears and shit like that. And then you come back out having done your, meditation glamour magic time. And now you look different. Ta-da. Um, but the tissage is more to help give you flavor to beginning a character build and finding ways to role play and interact with the world around you when you first land as boots on the ground. And if anybody else wants to feel free.
I'd just like to add quickly about the tessage that of light and life and other tessages in general, is that it is also what you interpret of it. Like, for example, I'm also a fae of light and life, but I interpret it in more of the cycle of life and the cycle of light. So the presence and the absence of it, the cycle of life and death. So you can have both at the same time because nature is always evolving and things like that. So it is, whilst it is a general theme, it is what you make of it that makes it your own tissage.
But I hope that answers the question about tissage, because that is it's not a rule book for how to play a fae. It's like it's not you picked these, so these are your options. It's a hey, this is a thing to give you an idea of where to start, so you're not, shooting at the sky and hoping to hit a cloud. It's it's like the pirate code from Pirates of the Caribbean. They're guidelines, not rules. Okay. Are there any micro magics that other players should be aware of when they engage with your court?
All right.
Eden.
Yeah. Yes. Short answer, yes. Long answer is long. So, for our court, each of our circles, which are like our subsections, which represent each peak of the day, so dawn, zenith, dusk, and midnight, each of those circles has their own micro magic that they specialize in and that they will utilize with their events and with their players and with their members. They're all listed and explained in our court document, which I think is shared here somewhere. If not, I'll send it again. But basically, yes, there are cursed items. They're all very, most of them are very classic Fae, like cursed/enchanted items, contracts. I thought up a food micro magic last year, so like in the way that you're not supposed to take food from the fairies, right? And then there's also a game kind of magic. It's more well explained. It's a little hard to explain just in the short time that we've got, but it's more of a gambling rather than a contract. Like a game that one could win or lose. Yeah, so those are kind of our four, and they're all the micro magics are open to every court, every Fae player. These are just ones that we and our circles specialize in and will use more often than not.
Tide of Seasons kind of has a twofold approach to our micro magic where all of our chalices are assigned to a season, and vice versa, and then those seasonal chalice circles have their own magic that they do. The waters have not yet revealed all of them, and that's our first ring, I guess. And those ones are open to anyone who wants to participate. Then our second ring, for lack of a better word, is our like our leader magic. We're currently workshopping that title. So I know it says monarch, but we're currently workshopping that. And those ones are a little bit more in depth to learn. So for example, Leica does curse breaking. So like if you get a cursed object and it does something to you, she does curse breaking. My magic is divination, so but because those are a little bit more involved, they are learned magics, like you have to learn them. Um, Anyone can learn them, but it does take time to do that. But if you have more specific questions about like specific micro magics of our court, the best way to do that to get more information is to shoot a holder, an archfey, or myself or like a message, and we can answer those questions.
In terms of the Court of Shikari, obviously, several of our magics are not public knowledge and will not become public knowledge. We have dedicated disinformation campaigns to deliberately obscure everything that we can or cannot do. In terms of what I can speak on, I can say that Ilinus has several times offered to make deals with people. Interpret that how you will. Generally speaking, though, our court micromagics are very internal and not openly discussed outside of the court.
Um, Court of Mirages has a couple micro magics that come up. The big one is Heartstones. It's just this idea that our court came up with creating these magic little like radiation sinks that make it so that instead of the glamour magic emanating out of you as a fey being and into other beings and the world around you, it goes into the crystal. And that serves two purposes. One is it creates a reservoir for you to pull on later, which is how we kind of explain people who will have really big, like, glamour changes where, like, we do what's called wings up, where you're like as dressed up as you possibly could be. And the idea is that, and I see you, Elith. Um, the idea is that you're using that like stored magic. The other purpose it serves is, again, our court's whole shtick is that we're trying to like reconnect the Fae and Mundus. And the idea was, as part of us being blamed for transforming babies or cursing cows, etc., was just because we had a radiation issue that we couldn't control. So the stones were something that made it so that we could return to Mundus without accidentally transforming any, like, a neighbor's kid, or, you know, because they ate some of the berries that we've been cultivating for the last 8 months. Like, it's not a curse because they stole from us. They just ate something that effectively had so much Fey magic in it that it made them super Fey touched in one dose. It's an accident. So if what we have are these stones that help prevent those accidents, it makes it more likely that the Fae will be able to reconnect with the peoples of Mundus without being seen as a threat. The other big micro magic is called dream weaving. And it's something that originally started as just something we were doing within the court as individuals who wanted to do divination work, work with cards, work with runes, work with bones. We have all of those in our ranks. And then we ended up having a couple of Dreamweavers actually use it in ducal couriers, which is like the thing you use to interact with Biko the game. And it's like a little packet that you turn in as a guild with seals and resources and like a prompt on what you're trying to do with the game. And you turn that in and then it comes back to you. And we ended up using dream weaving in a couple of ducal couriers. So like it's been a lot of fun. And the only reason I bring that up is if you guys have micro magics and you start doing things like ducal couriers, go ahead and throw it in there as spice because the game will play back with you. It's a lot of fun.
Okay. Our next question is, are there any customs or general practices that players should be aware of when engaging with your court?
No, generally no. um, the Mirage Court's greeting of the palms up versus palms down is generally used mostly at big Fey events to greet the Mirage Court and each other at our bigger Fey events, and kind of like a respect for that greeting and the game they've built before us. In general, but in general, we don't have any specific greetings or practices. Um, yeah, hopefully, maybe we'll have some someday, but as of now, not so much.
Okay, for Tides of Seasons, we don't have any practices yet. We just asked that be respectful regardless of differences. Leica jokingly said, "Don't break her ankle." Um, Legitimate concern, but just be respectful. That's all we ask because we are more than willing to play with people if they were willing to play back with us. So, but that is a two-way street, so we just ask for that. Yeah.
As far as the Court of Shikari, we've obviously got internal ways of recognizing each other that I'm not teaching you because that would defeat the point. In terms of customs for outsiders, obviously the most important custom is good manners. We have a tendency to remember when people fail to show good manners towards us. The second most important custom is handing me 20 solar before speaking to me. A cookie is worth about 20 solar, yes, Eden.
Well, Alunas did mention that they like to make deals.
This is also true.
Um, for the Court of Mirages, like very similar for the most part to what Alunas just said about, just treating people with the general politeness you would treat any group of new people when you approach them and interact with them the first time. When it like if you want to have an extra leg up, using that greeting that Eden mentioned earlier is great. In the case of new players, you would always approach somebody from the Mirage Court, both hands out with your palms down. But the greeting itself is that hosts or people who are like more responsible, I don't want to say higher in rank, but like if it's a leader's job to uphold somebody else, what you're supposed to do if you're a host or a leader, you approach with both hands out, palms up. because the idea is that you are supporting, you're gently giving pressure and support to the person underneath you. And a lot of that comes from the big like tagline of our court, which is positions of power are positions of service. The idea is that like having a title is not a cool sticker you get to put on your forehead or a tiara you get to put on top of your head. It's a responsibility for taking care of your people, and the land or world that is also you and your people's responsibility.
Okay, can players join the court as a normal human who is looking to either become Fae or Fae touched, or do they need to already have some sort of Fae heritage? Eden.
All right. So the court, our inner workings are open to Fae and Fae touch only. Like things like our magics, our like if we end up what's the word? It's not. Oh my god. Enabling. It's not. No, not the word I'm looking for. If we able reintegrate our other roles. Yeah, thanks, Runa. If we reintegrate some of the other rules we came up with during the conception of the court, once we start to grow a little bit bigger, again, those would probably be limited to Fae and Fae Touch. But in terms of friends, in terms of allyships, we are not discriminatory in any way, shape, or form. We have goblin friends, we have human friends, we've got all kinds of like people that we love, and yes, like his personal goblin, and yeah, but our inner workings are Fae and Fae Touch exclusive.
For Tide of Seasons, we are open to those who wish to be Fae or Fae touched. Because it is such a large concentration of Fae magic whenever any court is together, there is always a risk of that like radiation spill off. Um, we do have our initiation ceremony planned for the morning after the heritage ceremony, so those who wish to join have that chance to gain Fae heritage first. Um, but yeah.
For the Court of Shikar, we are open to any race. We have members that are Fae as well as non-Fae, humans, and other different creatures and races. So we are not looking at what you are, we're looking at who you are. If you vibe with us, that's how you'll know if you can join or not. We don't care what race you are.
Yeah, in that regard, Court of Mirages is very similar. Like, we have a set of 3 vows that you take if you join all the way up to first circle and you're in one of the guilds. You take 2 if you go up to second circle, 1 if you hit first. And for us, as long as you're willing to take those vows and adhere to those vows, where you come from or who or what you are doesn't matter. We've got humans who are only kind of human because they're technically werewolves. We've got we had an orc for a short period of time. Like, we've got lots of different kinds of players.
Sweet. This one is just, are there titles or ranks that people should know? Because I know we've been throwing around a lot of different titles, a lot of different things that people are called, and it can get confusing if you don't know what that is. So Eden, what's the stuff for quarter time?
So ideally, in the future, when we are a little bit larger, or more personally involved with our court members, as we've been shifting around for a few years, is our main council our leading quote unquote body, our ruling quote unquote body is a council of 6 people, including myself and 5 others. I think 2 of them were here. No, Vasilisa is here, who is Keeper of Dusk, and Allura was here earlier, but I think she had to leave. There are 4 keepers of each circle, and then 2 auxiliary keepers to act as helping hands for those circles, say substituting in for a ceremony or when someone can't be there, or just being an extra set of helping hands. So I am keeper of the first sands, so I give my helping hands to the early hours, so dawn and zenith. Our members are called minutes because minutes make up every day, and seconds sounded weird. So, uh, yeah, and in the future, hopefully, we'll be able to reintroduce our other kind of roles that we've got, which, are ambassadors, our sentinels, things more detailed. But for now, it's us keepers in our council and our minutes, which are our members.
For Tide of Seasons, this isn't the most accurate. This is changing. So the current titles are, we have 2 monarchs, but we're looking to change that. That is a holdover from the old Court of Seasons. So we're workshopping those titles, but there is 1 person that presides over the seasonal aspect of the turning, which is the idea of a cycle turning. So that is Leica. She is our solstice person. We're workshopping that title. And then I am the one over the water side of the turning. So this says Tide Caller Monarch. Again, it's getting changed. And then underneath that, there is a council made up of chalice holders. So someone who holds the power of one of the chalices from Thalassa, and then our archfey who holds the power of a season. So for our circles, they all have 2 leaders. The only exception to that is Autumn does have 2 archfey. One of our archfey, Tegwin, is here today, but because Autumn is both a time of celebration and a time of decay and remembrance and preparing for the end of a cycle. So they have 2. They're the only season that has 2, but those are sort of our titles. There is not a set protocol for approaching any of our leaders. Please don't feel weird about approaching our leaders. We're normal people. It's fine.
For the Court of Shikari, the main title that we have is that Nestrea, her head of the guild and the court, is our Amarantine. So that is the main title you need to know. We are not much about pomp and circumstances and ranks, but we do have some internal ranks and titles that we use within ourselves that are not necessarily out for a general public. A person can have many titles within a court, but this is something that is one inside and works for our insides. Other than that, whilst Nistria is our head and Amarantine, we also have Illunis, which is the second in command. We have Ariandis, which is the third in command, and I am the diplomatic liaison. So that is the public titles that you are allowed to know. And generally, tea is appreciated before 10 a.m., especially for the Amarantine. Other than that, we don't have any specific protocols that you should know for joining us, for seeing us, meeting us, or contacting us.
Aside from, again, 20 Solar.
Yes.
I openly take
base. Yeah.
For Court of Mirages, we've got a lot of stuff that we'll use with each other internally for roleplay, and we do have several ceremonies that we do within our own ranks that will make those titles relevant and have us using them on a regular basis. But I don't think really any of us require or expect anyone from outside of the courts to be using them. So if you meet us and don't know them, that's fine. Nobody's going to hold it against anybody or take it personally. And that even goes for people who are leadership in other courts. There's so much going on all the time, and all this stuff has to Venn diagram in with all of the titles that are going on for socio-political stuff for the people here who are also plugged into that side of the game. So it's one of those kinds of things where if somebody remembers titles, it's a pleasant surprise, but it's not at all required or expected. Um, for like central stuff at the moment, we've got me, who's the godmother. Then we've got Stella, who is the mistress of protocol. We've got Aiden, who is the steward of the lands. And right now, Colson is kind of like the acting second for our guardian of Mirage. And basically, those things are stuff that connects with things that either connect to the socio-political game, et cetera, et cetera. So it's more informative stuff to tell other people within our group what their jobs are and their responsibilities for their membership. Because again, for us, titles, positions of power, service. So we don't really expect anybody to meet us with those titles.
And then, are there events, ritual ceremonies for your court, and which ones are open for the public to like join or watch?
Sorry. All right. So each of our four distinct keepers may be running their own events that would be up to them whether or not they would allow outside outside membership or attendance. But our two big events are the Ceremony of Convergence, which is our initiation, which will most likely be held on Wednesday post conclave. And the Hour of Many Moons, which is likely to be Thursday night, which is a kind of gathering and connecting ritual of the souls of Mundus and the Fae, and kind of all those different people who are able to come together for the Grombatai. Yeah, but and those two rituals are open for viewership by anybody. But the initiation, obviously, if you are trying to be an initiate, you will be Fey or Fey touched, as we spoke of before. The Hour of Many Moons, however, participation is open to everybody.
For Tide of Seasons, our two big ones are The Awakening, which is our initiation for our new members. That will be in the morning on the battlefield Tuesday morning. I want to say 10 a.m., but I have to double check. And then our other event is Chart Your Waters, which will be at the Auberge Wednesday at 1 p.m. And that is an activity where we are drawing like a treasure map, but of our personalities. So, like, who are you as a person? Map it out. I also know that our Archfey of Autumn, Nimir, who will be at the GB this year, is planning a harvest celebration. I believe they're still workshopping some details, so more details on that to follow. But I do know that is another one that is open. All of these are open for anyone to come watch. Charter Waters, anyone can participate in that, or the Harvest. The Awakening is our initiation, so if you are participating, there is the expectation that you are joining the court. But it is open if you would like to come just watch, just to see what it looks like.
For the Court of Shikari, the majority of our events are invite only, so you have to know about the event in order to be able to go to the event. If you know about the event If usually is because you have been told about said event directly by one of our members, and therefore it usually comes with an invitation if you have been told directly. Other than that, our tea ceremony and contest is open to the public in general. The date and hour has not been specified yet.
For Court of Mirages, we have one ceremony. Well, actually, I suppose technically we have two. The other one I didn't put on the sheet. Maybe I should have. The first one though is the Heritage Ceremony. We put that on every year. It's on Monday at we gather at 8 p.m. Start the ceremony by 8:30 p.m. at the fort on Monday of the GB this year. And that isn't just open to all Fae, that's open to all of Bico and all of Mundus. Um, I can get more details to people. There will be more details for that later. The other public ceremony I would say that we kind of do, it's not technically done by the Court of Mirages. It's really something that's done by Stella and Vixen. Stella is our mistress of protocol. Vixen is one of the priests of Nakatoon, priestesses of Nakatoon. And they do some really cool primal phase stuff. But that's not technically a Mirage Court thing, which is part of the reason I didn't include it. But it is a ceremony. It is run by people who are from the Mirage Court. It is open to the public. And I believe they're doing that on the Wednesday evening of this year. But otherwise, there are several ceremonies that we run internally. We've got one for initiation. We've got other ones for finding your, because everybody's got two heartstone. They have your birthright heartstone, and then there's the offering stone that you get later from the offering ceremony that we do as well. But those are all for if you're in the court, invite only if you're from outside the court.
Okay, so how do players join your court? I know we sort of touched on the like in-game part of this, but like, do they need to find you in-game and roleplay it? Can they sign up on Discord beforehand? What sort of is the way to go about starting the process of joining a court?
For quarter time, it's very like shoot a keeper, don't shoot the keeper. Send the keeper a message. A keeper, there's 6 of us. Send any one of send any one of us a message asking specifically about joining the court, what it would potentially involve, and all that kind of stuff. It's very again, we're very small still, so it would be very simple. Be like, be there, don't be an asshole. Or full initiation, where you receive a kind of a little trinket in our gift, in our kind of version of a heartstone, which is a small little hourglass, is that would be received on site at the Grand at the ceremony of convergence. If there's like for some reason you can't attend the GV, but you're able to attend another event that one of us is attending, you could maybe receive it there. But the GB and the ceremony of convergence is the main way for, and the most recommended way, because it's fun to join the court officially, even if you interact and say you're joining the court online beforehand and kind of pick out where you think you would fit best, even though those things are explained at the ceremony as well.
Tide of Seasons works very similar to that, where it is best to express your interest beforehand online if possible, just so we can get mostly a head count. And then you're made an official member at the Awakening. The divine waters within you are awoken, and then you are part of the court, and you get our court's version of the hourglass or the heartstone. But it is best to express interest beforehand and then go to the Awakening. And that's how you join our court.
As mentioned previously, for the Court of Shikari, we go through an interview and referral process. So ideally, to join the court, you have to contact usually Nestrea or Amarantine, but you can also be referred through one of our members. It will usually be either Elunis or me. And the court is pretty much vibe based. So you have to be part of the court to partake in the majority of our rituals and rites. But it sounds worse than it is. It's just a bunch of questions to see if you fit with us. It's a little bit of an interview just to see who you are, do you vibe with us, and do we think you'll be a great fit. It's as well to protect our members as much as to make sure that everyone have fun and fits together.
Also, generally speaking, even if you've spoken to myself or Evelyn, you're probably also going to have to talk to Nistrea.
It's not a probably, it's a fact. You will have to talk to Nistria no matter what you do.
Sorry, my mouse plug it in. When it comes to joining us, like for the most part, contacting online to start. If you haven't been to the grounds is great. If you're on the grounds, approaching us on the grounds also great. Um, I think though that the advice that's kind of been a through line here that like it's still more fun even if you kind of know where you want to settle to kind of go through some amount of role playing to get like involved at the beginning is great. Like we've had new players that have been brought in by people that like it's their first time going to Bico and they're coming with someone who's already a member of our group. So they're by proxy coming with us. And those people will start with a little bit of like co backstory with one of our other players. But for the most part, they still go through all of the role play of meeting everyone when they hit the grounds for the first time and trying to figure out how they want to integrate and fit in. They don't necessarily build a character that's like been there the whole time and we just didn't like talk to them or about them. Like you still are starting your story from the ground up because like truth be told, the only story most of capital B Bico cares about is the one you write there, not really your backstory anyway.
All right. So, what is the best way to approach a court member in character if you are going to meet on the grounds route without being rude or breaking immersion?
Right. So, like it says on there, no fancy titles or honorifics are needed or wanted. The Keepers Council, the Council of the Hourglass, we are democratic in that way because we want to keep it that way, and we don't want to be that kind of ruling class. And we made our court this way very specifically in response to some of like previous lore of like fairy queens in the Feywilds not returning the magic, and we were like, okay, we don't want queens then because queens didn't work out in the end. So we are just come up, say hello, I will probably offer a cookie because I always have cookies. uh, but yeah, openness, kindness. Yeah, Bruna, that might be just a good tidbit to have. But yeah, openness, kindness. Be like, hello, I'm so and so. I'm interested in the Court of Time. And then you would ask your questions, or the keeper would be like, "Yes, that's great. Do you want to know anything? Is there anything I specifically can help you with?" Kind of like that. So yeah.
With Tide of Seasons, we don't have a specific way that members like need to be approached. Um Again, a lot like with Court of Time, fancy titles and honorifics are not needed. However, I do realize that Bigo is a place where you're learning like 8 million names a day. So if you come up to me in Leica and all you can remember is our title, we're not gonna like get mad at you if that's all you remember. It's fine. Um, we just ask, just be polite, and that'll get you pretty far. But I think that's also true of a lot of Biko, is if you approach it with um, an air of humility, you'll get a lot farther than maybe you think you will. Yeah, Leica gets called Space Dog all the time. So like titles aren't really like a thing that we honor too much outside of like the ceremonial stance of it. But yeah, there's not really a specific set way to approach our members, outside of maybe like the awakening has specific protocol, but that is like our biggest ceremony. So that is sort of the only place where we're like, hey, we have a protocol, please follow this specific thing. But that's pretty much it.
For the Court of Shikari, be respectful of our members and be just in general genuine with your intentions. Be honest, and we will treat you in kind. So nothing specifically needs to be known for approaching us. Ideally, approaching directly one of the higher members, just like our head Amarantine, Nestrea, or Alunis, or me, will be easier for you to connect with other people, but just be respectful.
Yeah, I think everyone's sensing a through line at this point. Like, we all are aware that Biko's a pretty swiftly growing game and that there's going to be a lot of people who will land, and the only context they really have is maybe some connection on the Travelers Discord and some YouTube videos. So like it's fine as long as people are polite. I don't think you really need to make sure you bring anything else to a new interaction.
And then I know that we have touched on this a little bit as a through line, but if someone is looking to join your court specifically, what should they do?
Yeah, similar to everything we said before. Come up, say hello, express interest, and there'll be an explanation of the court's values, what we do in the court, what we're looking to accomplish, and then you have that choice to whether to continue or to find somewhere else that you fit better. But yeah, and then come to the ceremony of convergence and receive your proper initiation.
Tide of Seasons, very similar. We have our court Discord is linked on this server under invite links, and that is open to the public. So joining that, getting to know our people, talking to us there, and then going to the awakening.
For the Court of Shikari, generally speaking, if you can find myself or Nestraya, obviously, that's the most direct route. If you find Evelyn, Ariandis, if you find any of our members, really, befriend them. You know, every person who can speak well of you is taken into consideration, obviously. So, it's not that, oh, you have to talk to these specific people to get in. It's that you will have to talk to a couple people before you get in, but it's not mandatory that you speak to these people. You don't lose out on anything by talking to other people. It's really just we want to make sure that you'll fit with our people. And so the more of our people you've already met and fit with, the better for you. But there's no strict requirement of, talk to this person, then this person, then this person. It's not a completely linear thing. It's just you will have to do the entrance interview. Otherwise, find our people, speak to us.
In our case, we also have a Discord open to the public. And like if you end up joining the court, there's more permissions that get added further down for access to other channels. We also have a Facebook page and things like that. When it comes to in-game or like on the grounds, if it's any time other than the week of the GB, you usually can find some of our people at the Druids camp that is up in Newtown, right next to the White Lions Church and the Lys Noir cabin. If it's during the week of the GB, then we're likely going to have at least 4 or 5 members at any given time minimum in camp all the way in the back of the city. It's a long walk, but we know it's a long walk, so we've got places for people to sit and chill before they have to go ahead and make the long haul back if they come all the
And then the last question on this document, I have been taking notes of all the ones that have popped up as we've been going through this, is can players still have fun as Fae with your court if they choose to remain courtless? What, if anything, from their court, your court, can they participate in if they aren't officially a full member?
Like I said, we're still updating our smaller keeper-led events, and that will be up to the keeper who is running those events to decide whether or not people outside the court are welcome to be in attendance. But it is likely that that will be the case, that others will be allowed to attend, as we are, again, just trying to build a community and have a lot of fun at this big vacation event that we're paying for. And courtless are welcome in our spaces. Courtless are welcome to attend our events, even if they're not like our 2 main events that I've already stated are open for viewing. And we're always down to be friends with courtless, right? There's being from a court or not being from a court really doesn't represent you as an individual necessarily. So we'd rather get to know you than you to be somewhere that you don't want to be just because you think you have to be in a court.
So all of the events that are planned for this coming year for GB for Tide of Seasons are open to the public. We welcome courtless. Leica and I last year were actually courtless, so we know what it's like to be courtless. We know what it's like to be in a court. This question did come up earlier. Do you have to join a court? No. You can be courtless, and that is fine. There's still plenty to do even if you don't join a court. A court will I like the courts personally because it gives sort of an access point to role play, like a starter point for it, but it's not like you don't. It's not a requirement for being Fae at Bigo to be in a court.
Yeah. In terms of the Shikari, obviously, just like everyone else, we're not gonna, turn up our noses and shoo you away for being courtless. If you are curious about the courts, we have in the past given a rundown on all of the courts, not just pitching our own, but trying to present as unbiased as possible a view of all the courts to courtless Fae or people who've been curious about joining the Fae. So we obviously are going to do our best to help you be situated and comfortable wherever you would like to be, whether that's with us or not with us. You're always welcome to come hang out. We are generally very social. We're a little bit known as the party court. We have some very good mixologists. I have some bartending training. Estrella has also got very good background in mixing drinks. So if you, not that you have to drink alcohol to hang out with us, but there is often alcohol in our camp. We are generally very happy to share. We are also generally prone to mixing very strong, so do not get drinks from both myself and Estrella without telling us that it's not your first drink. We will not mix like it is your second drink if you don't tell us it's your second drink. And we have gotten some people unintentionally very plastered. We will also have various hangover cures around, Gatorade, pickle juice, things of this nature to try and keep people from regretting not telling us. But generally speaking, we're very open to speaking to people outside the court, including courtless fae, and helping you situate yourself wherever is best for you.
I'd also like to mention that whilst our mixologists are amazing for drinks with alcohol, they are also amazing for drinks with no alcohol in it. So you can enjoy a cocktail as much as a mocktail with us.
I again similar through line. Like nobody on our group is going to turn up a nose at you for being courtless. Most of our founders were courtless for a few years. But I also think it's important to state that this question also kind of mirrors a bigger question about Biko overall, which is, can I have fun interacting with people in a country that's not my country? And that's 100% true. And I think it also functions the same way it functions with courts, which is, yeah, you can party together, you can have a great time together, you can frequently role play and participate in ceremonies together. There frequently also is still a door that will close when things like state secrets come up. At the end of the day, Biko is a war game. There are frequently countries that can be at odds with each other, at any given time. There are some countries that like to be very secretive about what their history is and how their inner workings function, et cetera, et cetera. So, like, same for if you're interacting with a bunch of people from outside of your country. If you're interacting with a bunch of people outside of your court, whether you're courtless or just in a different court, it's very likely that certain doors will close when the socio-political game comes up. And that doesn't have anything to do with being any anger or having any anger or resentment against anybody else in the room. It just is, at the end of the day, a war game. And some secrets do need to be kept. In a lot of ways, it helps build a lot of the fun and the mystique of having groups like courts that function extra Biko interacting with each other, because it creates some really cool interactions that you don't get as often.
All right, so I think that wraps up this specific document, but I have been taking notes of what questions have come up in the chat, and one that we got was, if I go to the heritage ceremony, do I have to go to all the others? No. Biko is like a buffet. There's 580 million things that you can do during Biko, and you are going to miss out on things. There is going to be things that maybe aren't your taste, that you are like, nah, I don't really want to do that, or things that you're like, I really want to do that. Just because you go to one thing doesn't automatically mean you have to go to all of the other things that fall in that category. It's kind of like if you were to go to like Coachella. If you go to one concert at Coachella, you don't have to go to all of them just because you're there. So just because you go to Heritage doesn't mean that you have to go to all or even any of the ceremonies that come after that during the week.
It also goes in reverse. You can attend the other ceremonies without going to the heritage ceremony. It's not
Absolutely.
mandatory.
Yeah, like something I want to make sure that, like, not just people who play Fae know, but all of Biko know that, like, the heritage ceremony is something that's put on by the Mirage court. And while we do have a portion of the heritage ceremony where we transform people, that is by no means the only way that things can be done. It is no means the only way that people can become Fae. We just got basically one of the downsides to being the large group that got to work with the GMs for locking certain things in is that they also kind of imposed some rules on us on how our stuff works. They didn't want our culture to accidentally become all of Biko's Fae culture, so they put some pretty big fences down on how the heritage ceremony is supposed to work. They don't really bother us because they didn't interfere with any of the things that are important to us about the heritage ceremony. So, cool, Hulu. But everything they said is true. Nobody has to show up to the heritage ceremony to become a Fae. You don't have to show up to the heritage ceremony to interact with Fae culture or other courts. And just because you interact with it doesn't mean you're locked into doing things either. I think that the metaphor of Biko being a buffet and you take and enjoy what you want to and leave what you don't is honestly one of the best metaphors I've heard for Biko in a long time, and I do plan to continue using it.
Another question that came up in the chat was, what are the requirements to make a new court?
Make one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think honestly the biggest piece of advice I could give is just make sure that you've got like I would say more than a handful of people that want to do this with you. Because Biko itself has even gotten to a point where you can't found a guild without I think it's 15 people now,
Mhm.
which is crazy. But it's really difficult to get established and have people remember you if there's only 2 or 3 of you. It's not necessarily a function of not being welcome or anything like that. It's just we're talking a 5,000 person game. Like, yeah, what Alunas just said. It was only 10 people just a few years ago. It was 5 when we founded 2 of our threads. So, like, the requirement for people to found a guild has gone up by quite a bit. But, like, the population of Bigo has gone up quite a bit. When we founded our guilds, there was only about 2,500 to 3,000 players. And now there's somewhere between 5 and 7, depending on how you count a player. It's crazy. So, but yeah, I think I've actually answered the question at this point.
I think another thing to mention, if you're going to make a court, is nail down what your court is a court of. Like, what is, I don't want to say shtick, but kinda. What is your court's thing that they are remembered for? What's your theme? Your core pillars of, like who your court is. Because then it'll be a lot easier to plan all your other stuff. Like when Leica and I just a couple months ago were sitting down to plan the court formerly known as the Court of Sacred Waters. We were like, we want to do something with water. Okay, where do we go from there? So giving yourself sort of a theme to work with gives you a jump point for where you want to go with everything else. Like what sort of magics, what sort of players, what sort of iconography. Um, so those are probably like the two big things, is like have people and then give yourself the grace of a theme.
The one other thing I will add before we maybe move to conclave talk is make sure you are either the sole proprietor or that there is more than 2 of you in a leadership position. Because when it comes down, like if you are the only person, you are the main leader, then you make all the decisions, right? Blah blah blah. Blah. But if there's 2 of you, if there's 2 of you in a partnership of leadership, and something goes wrong, it ends up being a 1v1, and that does not work out. It's really hard to resolve anything. So that's just my advice. If anyone's thinking of building a court, have either a bigger like council of people in leadership, or if that's the way you want to play, to be kind of like the sole leader. Even though I think that would be really difficult.
I would
Yeah.
also like to add about courts that there is courts that already exist in lore in game. So there is already the Court of Stars, the Court of Cicadas, the Winter Court, and I believe I am never sure if it is the Night Court or the Court of Shadows. Never exactly sure which one it is.
I believe it
But
is Shadows.
there is already courts that exist that are in the Biko lore, so that these are teams you cannot take as they already been taken and acknowledged as canon by the Biko GMs directly.
That is kind of part of why the Shikari are the Shikari and not, the Court of Shadows or the Court of Chaos or whatever. It's partly because the Court of Shadows already existed, and also partly because we have a very specific portfolio from when it was originally conceived of, probably close to a decade ago. Agendas within agendas, schemes within schemes. So it is important to be aware of what I think they are largely NPC courts, but it is important to know what the NPC courts are up to as well. And I think there are sometimes new NPC courts created, and sometimes they fall out of favor. But generally speaking, also, if you speak with the other Fae and you go, hey, we're thinking of starting a court around this. Well, I mean, obviously, we've just told you, but other Fae will generally be aware enough of the NPC courts to go, hey, you might get caught on gimmick infringement by Biko.
But like,
Have
it's also worth noting that we've only known the names of these other Fae courts, I think, has it officially been a
1
year
year,
yet?
pretty
Has it
much,
been a year, or will it be a year
I
at the
think,
GB?
pretty much a year.
uh,
I think it's a year
yeah,
at the GB because that's when we
because
first met them, was at the Heritage Ceremony, wasn't it?
no, there was
We met.
PB.
It was PB.
Oh yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
we
You're
met still
right.
at
Then
Purple
it
Ball.
would be
Oh
2
yeah,
years
because I
with
got so
Paramount
angry
District.
at him.
Yes.
With PB, it was
He
2 years.
came and sat down and made a bunch of my people cry, and I was like, "Go away! I don't like you. I don't care if you're big important man. You're mean. Leave."
It's okay. I offered him a cookie, and I think he got startled.
Yeah.
Because he kind of stuttered a little bit, and it was really fun.
I would like to mention for anyone that is willing or wanting to create a new court, you are welcome to come talk to me. I have helped found the Court of Seasons when it was that, and also have helped found the Court of Time. And I can also throw Runa under the bus here and say that Runa is an excellent reference for helping create courts too.
Yeah, I think a lot of the leaders of a lot of the courts have a lot of valuable experience with founding courts. For example, I know that Eden did the same, where they helped found the court formerly known as Seasons and Time. Leica and myself helped found Court of Time, and then we did Tide of Seasons. So there's a lot of experience if you would like to start a court and you would like to leverage any of the experience of any of the leaders of the courts. The easiest way to probably go about asking that is to just ping the court representative role on this Discord, because then you'll get the big like public leaders of all of the four courts, and that's probably the easiest way to go about that.
We all have many fingers and many pies,
Yeah.
and we're all generally like connected to each other in some way. So we know each other. We're aware. It is known. You know.
Okay. What is the conclave?
Hi, welcome.
This is the part where the bus runs over Eli, just so everyone's aware.
Why does it have to be a bus though? Can we not find something more Biko appropriate somehow?
The chariot.
Like
The
a horse
chariot is
carriage or
running over
something? Yeah,
you.
there we go. Amazing. Yes, I'll keep it short and brief since we've been going for a while. This whole courts like kind of jumping up at Bicolline is a rather new thing. It hasn't been going on for so many years. For a pretty long time, it was a Mirage Court, and just a Mirage Court. And with so many jumping up, we kind of came to a situation where we needed to figure out how to communicate with one another, where to roleplay together, where we fit in the game, all those kinds of things. And from that, the idea came to kind of have a gathering where all the conclaves could come together, discuss certain topics and matters of great importance, and build positive and encouraging roleplay from there. And this is what the conclave is. So we had our first edition last year. We had all courts that existed at the time present, also the courtless. So if you are courtless, you have a role to play there as well. You will go through a very, very, very difficult process of figuring out who could represent you. It is a cutthroat game of rock, paper, scissors. So good luck. May the odds be in your favor. And we will have our second edition this year. So this is not a Bico official event. This is more of a community brought up event between all the courts. The topics range from very serious topics to also very fun ones. Especially this year, we want to put a bit more emphasis on fun. So we are Fae, we are chaotic, which means that we might be putting value in things that aren't as big as other things in the world of Pico. You know how it goes. Everyone's talking about war and things, and we might want to figure out, I don't know, which rock shape is the best rock shape. I'm not quite sure, but let's figure it out together as Fae. So it will be that kind of a mix. So yeah, everyone in this chat is very much welcome there. Also, I've seen the questions before. Is it Fae only? Not entirely, as many courts also accept people that are not Fae within their courts, and we would of course not exclude those people. We don't exclude allies of the Fae either, but of course this will be a gathering that discusses matters of Fae. Therefore, that's what you can expect, and we also hope and assume that you will treat those topics with that kind of great importance and with the secrecy they deserve. So yeah, that's everything in a nutshell. Again, everyone's welcome to join. I did get confirmation from all courts that they will be again there this year. The GMs are also aware that this is happening, which means that we will see what they do with this information, and if there is some sneaky questing or other courts showing up, I don't know. They will not tell me. They just know it's happening and are excited about it, so we shall see. Also, I should say there's two volunteers that will be helping. So there's two roles that are kind of hosting this gathering, and that hopefully will play a bigger role within the whole Fae lore in the future too, being kind of spokespeople throughout the year. There is the voice of the conclave, which is kind of a master of ceremonies kind of person, and then the keeper of decisions, who is more of the person who keeps track of what has been going on and all of that. While I am organizing this behind the scenes on the grounds as Elith, I'm kind of just the excited person pushing people together and not one of these roles, if that makes sense. The current ones are, I believe, they're not here tonight. And we will also have to get 2 new ones before the next Ganbatai. This is in the works, people are being talked with, and I hope to have announcements on that soon, including the location. We're in talks with 2 locations right now, so we will have one. The question is just which one is it? There we go. That's my sales pitch.
Very good sales pitch. And then we got a question about Green Guard and guarding. The Green Guard is just like a volunteer guard for important Fae events like the Heritage Ceremony. I don't know if it's super active right now, just because as the Fae have gotten bigger and Heritage Ceremony has gotten bigger, it's gotten a lot more recognition. So I don't know that it's necessarily the most active. I do know though that different courts have like a different idea of guards. For example, and Eden can talk more about this, Court of Time has their sentinels. So specific courts might have more guard focused roles. Whether or not there is something like a plan to use those roles is up to the individual court. Eden, I don't know if you want to talk more about your sentinels.
Yeah, the Sentinels were originally conceived of for that kind of role within the court, to be kind of our guardians are more battle focused members. But there, it's in terms of volunteering to guard the Fae, like guarding the ceremony. Yeah, you show up, like Kyo said, you show up and you guard it, right? You don't really have to do anything special or anything. You could talk to one of the leaders and be like, "Hey, I want to be a guard for the ceremony." And we're all usually at heritage ceremonies, so we'll be like, "Yeah, sure, cool. Please keep an eye out. Let us know if you see anything. Let us know if you need, if you do get into a fight, because that's kind of cool." But yeah, I think in general, each court has their more like battle focused quote unquote roles within them for like the player to support the players that want to play those roles. And then yeah, Grimmer I think was the last Green Guard member to be like active and speaking like online in online spaces. So there's always the option. I think he's in this server.
I think he
So you could
is.
try to like at him or mention him. There was a Green Guard channel, but it was it's still there.
It's still there. It just doesn't. It's just not a super active channel, just because it's sort of a show up if you would like to fulfill that role sort of thing. It's not really a we're gonna plan this whole like battle tactic thing.
Yeah, I think another one of the reasons that it kind of died off a little bit too was the fact that a lot of Fae stuff, unless because most of it was taking place outside of Biko itself, and combat isn't really like kosher if you don't have a marshal unless you're out on the battlefield. The only way like guards ever got to actually actively do anything against an attack was if somebody planned it for their ceremony. And like that was something that I decided a long time ago. And the short version of the story is somebody badly planned something like that out on the battlefield my second year at Biko, and my knee got dislocated first day. Um, so I made the decision very early on, like we don't do anything without the marshals or without like stuff planned, present, people who know what they're doing in charge. And that just meant that people who wanted to do guard duty ended up feeling kind of more like they were really just only bored doing guard duty. There was never anything to actually fight. They didn't really get to do anything other than enjoy sometimes a front row seat to the ceremonies they were at, and feeling cool because they did something fun with their friends. But like for people who want to actually fight or do guard work, it ended up kind of being a bit boring.
Yeah, that's why it's more like court specific these days, because if a specific court is planning something like that, obviously that is up to the individual court. It's not a big official thing. I think the last question that I saw was, how do cursed objects work?
Um, you well, I'm pretty sure courts have different courts have different ways of doing it. For Court of Time, we have uh, little cards that you kind of write your curse down onto, and you give it along with your cursed item. To kind of clarify that, hey, this is a Biko game item. You're not being cursed. Like you are choosing to be cursed by accepting this item. It is like very like you must be well informed. For us, it's like because again we've heard of people who have been quote unquote cursed by the Fae and then have taken it to heart without realizing that they had a choice in the matter. Um, when that is the basis of all the role play we want to encourage at Biko is that you're taking it because you want to have that experience. But yeah, I would say like including if you're going to make your own curse item, yeah, really for sure. If you're going to make your own curse item, have something or make sure you communicate to the person that you're cursing that they are allowed to say no, um, because sometimes there is like either like misinformation or like they just don't know, or they feel a kind of pressure to accept but we just want to make sure everyone's having a good time. So, in terms of cursed items, you can make them whatever you want. Just make sure that the person you're cursing knows that you are cursing them and that they know that they can opt out of being cursed.
The only other thing I'll say on cursed items is don't use things that hold personal sentimental value as cursed items, because there is not always a 100% guarantee that you will get it back, or that you will get it back in the shape you sent it out in. So if you're going to do cursed items, she had to go for the night, but Leica, she goes to the thrift store and just picks up stuff she thinks looks cool, with the understanding that it might not ever come back to her. And that's just a reality we've accepted. Um, because Biko is a big place, and if things circulate, there's a chance they could get left somewhere. They could get broken. They could get mistaken for something else and taken somewhere else, and then before you know it, it's just gone. And no one knows what happened to it. It's no one's fault. It's just gone. All
Yeah,
right.
a lot of the curses that, again, speaking more for myself personally than for my court here, but in terms of the curses that I work with, if you consider them curses, I work strictly on agreements. So usually there can be a written contract, or there can be, a verbal agreement as witnessed between people. I've brokered such things for other people who were not Fae as well, where essentially I stood there as a witness and was mediating to ensure that certain agreements were met, with certain penalties if they weren't. Essentially, uh, kind of, you could argue it's a curse is functionally a contract between people, where you go, hey, this is the curse that I'm bestowing on you, are you cool with it? And the other person looks at it and goes, yep, this is the terms of the curse that I'm going to abide by, and then they abide by it. It's not something you just kind of surprise someone with a curse. Like, there is a back and forth, kind of more out of character often with curses, about exactly how it's going to work, what it's going to entail. But at the end of the day, usually if it's in writing, it's easier to reference it in the future as well, if it's going to be something that's going to have longer term effects. If it's something short term, then obviously you can just kind of do it over the course of your roleplay conversation or what have you. But there is always the most important element is that everyone fully understands what they're getting into, and that it's thoroughly negotiated. It's not just surprise out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's always an opt in, with the understanding of like, here's exactly how this is going to work, but also to prevent people from like, well, I didn't have fun with that because I didn't want to do XYZ. Like, ultimately, this is a trip that you are paying real human dollars to go on. So it's important to get an experience that you are going to enjoy at the end. Ultimately, that is the main goal.
Yeah, as we're going to put in chat also, yeah, they're not enforceable micro magics. They're
Mm-hmm.
very much roleplay consent between players.
Yes.
Yeah, along those lines, like something we started with very early on when the group of us were playing Fae together, just the idea that the magic responds very deeply to will, and it can only do things that you want it to do. Um, there's that still leaves wiggle room for like having surprises. It's kind of like the classic careful what you wish for. You might ask the magic to do something and you don't get the result you expected. And that was a result of some hidden, deeper desire that you hadn't faced, or some a lost memory, whatever. There's still lots of fun ways to role play with that. But the idea always has been that Fey magic responds very deeply to will. And if you don't want it to work, it won't work. And it's also just another way that we kind of try to, we can do things like transform baby because we're mad at people. Like, that's another micro magic that we never were going to be able to enforce, and no player can. So we kind of wanted to discourage anybody accidentally trying to like rock up to Biko and start trying to push that kind of role play on other people simply because they play Fae. It's both a polite thing to do and a way to help make sure that people don't accidentally stick their foot in their mouth. And then the one other thing that I wanted to make sure we kind of covered that kind of got, I didn't realize, glazed over when we were talking original history. The very truncated version of Fae history is what we mentioned earlier. We started with just Old Fae and Mundus. They were being both persecuted by mortals for doing rumors of doing things like we mentioned, changing babies and ruining crops and yada yada. And also this is actual like canon that got hooked in for the rest of Biko. There's also these creatures called the Unnamables that eat things like magic, and there's one in particular that thinks Fae are really yummy. So there was a chunk of Fae that decided to try and create the Fae Wilds, leave Mundus, and create a safe space. That was where the Tisages came from. The Fae Wilds were born and built. The part of the history I kind of jumped over was the legends that are legends right now. They have not really been 1,000% confirmed by NPC work. It's just stuff that existed, and we have had NPC things and Ducal couriers come back that kind of support this, but we don't know exactly what is fact and what isn't at this point. So the legends are that everything went great for a while, but that Fae weren't actually originally immortal. Long lived, yes, but not immortal. And that the Fae that originally created the wilds and founded courts started basically getting selfish because they had almost like a godlike capability. Created this whole world. They had created courts and communities and civilization, and they started, instead of putting the magic back into the land in order for it to perpetuate, they started using that magic for selfish reasons, like prolonging their life into immortality. Excessively using glamour to change their appearance for vain reasons, etc., etc. The bottom line was the magic was supposed to go back into the land, and for whatever reason, it wasn't. And when that quit happening for long enough, huge portions of the wilds started vanishing, with nothing left. It wasn't like there was empty water left, or it was almost like their concept of the globe just got smaller and there were portions of things that just didn't exist anymore, and all of the people that were on it were gone. It's kind of like, to speak out of game, kind of like the Nothing from the Neverending Story, if you've ever read those books or seen the films. And as a result, the courts that still existed started trying to reconnect to Mundus because they couldn't figure out how to stop the degradation that was happening in the wilds, and the race, the people, the civilizations, everything stood to disappear. So the whole story was, starting in 2016, the Feywild started to punch back through into Mundus because there were so many courts trying to find ways to establish refugee territory and start sending people back through so they wouldn't be lost if the wild lost. And that was kind of when, our group first hit grounds and started building a story. The story long since has branched out and become other things. But that's kind of like backstory that's important for building a character. If you're coming from the Feywild and you're playing a new Fey, then you would be a character that is aware of the fact that things have been going very wrong, and that there are different courts trying to find different ways to slow down or stop that degradation. And that's something that courts here on the Mundus side of things are also still trying. To what end, we do not yet know. But that's all information that would be important to have if you're in the process of building a Fey character. So I wanted to make sure it was included in Q&A.
Yeah, like for small example, like I was saying earlier, Eden was in her garden in the Feywilds, and then it disappeared, and she wound up in Mundus through that way. Just kind of like her land was lost and she appeared here, which made a very good jumping off point for me as a new player who didn't really know anything about Biko or Biko's world, that she wouldn't have known anything about Biko's world either. So she was learning as she went, as she was teleported there, essentially. But yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, and that kind of that vague knowledge, um, and not super like detailed kind of backstory was really helpful in being able to build my character in whatever way she tended to grow.
Sweet. That I think was just about everything. I don't know that there are any other questions from the chat that didn't get an answer, or that we didn't cover. Um, I didn't get like sent any specifically. There weren't any left in like the general chat, so I think that's about it. I will post the recording of this in the questions channel as its own little topic when um, we officially wrap this up. I think Alunis has one more thing, and then the Green Guard is just a volunteer guard force for the Fae. I know it is also mentioned in the FAQ doc a little bit in more detail, but Alunis, you had one more thing that you wanted to cover.
I just wanted to bring up also that the Biko Fae don't necessarily abide by all of the kind of more traditional historical Fae rules. Not that you can't choose to, but like the rules about like, oh, Fae can't touch iron. Well, most of our swords are painted to look like iron, so obviously we can do that. In terms of Fae not being able to lie, some people choose not to lie, but there is no official restriction on that. There's no like gameplay restrictions on being Fae. Those are all voluntary. Whether or not you choose to be able to follow those rules, break those rules, or whatever is entirely personal and up to your own personal roleplay flavor. Just because I know that there's going to be some people who will probably ask, how much traditional Fey rules do we have to follow? And the answer is not that much. You can mostly get silly with it.
Yeah, I have some friends who like some non-Fae friends and out of guild friends who are like, oh, I wear my iron because I want to ward away the Fae, right? Like in that kind of gameplay sense that they are interacting with the Fae and our role play in that way, because I think that's very fun that they have decided to engage in their own way.
Yes. And likewise, my roleplay around that is that that's a very successful disinformation campaign.
Yeah, it's the Biko buffet. It's the take what you want, leave what you don't. If you want to ham up the I can't lie, so my word is good, but I'm gonna be really tricky and word things in such a way that it is intentionally deceptive, but it's not a lie. You can do that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it depends on who your friends are. If you want, I don't know that you want the cream left out in the hot Biko sun. That feels like a recipe for a trip to Hopdal, which you can only do so many times at GB before it gets a little old. But yeah, it really is the buffet of take what you want, leave what you don't. Eden, your cookies are divine. I don't think that counts.
I mean, alcohol is also a traditional offering, and the Shikari we have plenty of alcohol.
But yeah, I think that just about covers it. I hope this answered a lot of the big outstanding questions that people had about the courts about playing Fae at Bico, and now we have a record of it too. Um, so that's nice. But yeah.
Yeah, I am personally going to skedaddle as I came here right from work and I haven't eaten dinner and it is now 9 p.m. So I would like to eat something. But yeah, it was good to talk. My DMs are open for questions. The Court of Time Discord is open. Like I check this Discord all the time. I'll probably be. I have to switch the logo back
Sorry.
because the two courts
Sorry.
merged. So now I have to fix it again. But it's okay. Now we'll have one that spins again, which is nice. So, yeah, I will fix that and go eat my dinner. And I wish everyone good food. Go eat, please.
Yes, everyone, please eat, hydrate, etc. Thank you to everyone who attended and everyone who organized this as well.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good one.